Flight attendant's shocking reaction, "This is my flight," kicked out by Undercover Billionaire. She stood at the front of the airplane, eyes wide, heart racing. Lucy couldn't believe what was happening. Just moments ago, she was giving her usual safety spiel that felt mundane, routine. But the atmosphere shifted, thick with tension. Passengers looked around, whispers flooded the cabin like a low tide, and then it hit. A man in a tailored suit, cool and unaffected, had claimed this flight like it was his private jet. Every jaw dropped, and the buzz of disbelief swept through in eerie waves. The man, face obscured by dark glasses, commanded attention. His smile was something else, an unsettling blend of charm and menace. He waved his hand, and suddenly it felt as if the air grew heavier, laced with mystery and unease. Lucy felt her chest tighten as he addressed her in a tone that dripped with authority. "This is my flight," he declared, voice deep and smooth. The chuckles of disbelief quickly turned to gasps. She could almost taste the shock lingering in the air. "Ma'am, you need to accept that I'm taking this seat," he continued, gesturing to a plush recliner in first class. The audacity! Passengers were leaning in, eyes darting between the man and Lucy, who now stood frozen, mouth slightly agape. The whole world within those cabin walls felt dizzying and surreal. Why was this happening? Who was this man? As Lucy tried to regain her composure, she noticed something strange. The other flight attendants were shifting awkwardly, some whispering nervously behind their smiles. They exchanged glances loaded with unspoken rules and fear, creating a rhythm that felt too offbeat for an ordinary flight. And suddenly, fear clawed at her throat. What if he wasn't just a wealthy businessman? What if he was something much darker? The passengers fidgeted in their seats, a color draining from their faces. Lucy's stomach knotted. She had to act, but how? She could feel her hands trembling at her sides. The urgency hit like a wave. She needed to assert her authority, but how could one stand against a man who seemed so untouchable? Before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. Suddenly, Lucy knew it was now or never. The weight of every curious gaze was on her. She steadied her breath, squaring her shoulders, ready to confront the anomaly that had intruded on their flight. "Sir," she said, voice trembling yet firm, "I need you to leave this seat." The room fell silent, the kind of silence that amplifies every breath. The tension morphed into something electric. What would he do? For a split second, time froze, eyes wide, hearts pounding. This was no ordinary flight anymore. Who was this man really? The billionaire leaned back in his chair, an expression of amusement dancing on his lips. Laughter bubbled from his throat, low and dark, echoing like a sinister melody through the tense silence. It sent ripples of unease through Lucy, pulling the breath from her lungs. "Leave this seat," he repeated, the mocking tone dragging the words like molasses. "Oh, my dear, you mustn't understand the situation." He leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees as if inviting her to come closer, to play a dangerous game. Lucy's heart pounded in her ears. What was wrong with him? He wasn't treating this as a request, it felt more like a threat wrapped in a joke. Passengers shifted in their seats, eyes darted around the cabin, bewilderment flooding the space, weighing it down further. "Sir," she pressed, forcing the tremor out of her voice, "this is not how commercial flights operate. You need to adhere to the rules." The confidence in her tone felt like a mask, thin and ready to shatter, but he just shook his head with a bemused smile. "Rules? My dear, rules are simply suggestions for people who lack vision." With that, he waved a hand, as if he were conducting an orchestra of chaos. "Now, why don't we make this a little more entertaining?" Lucy felt the hairs on her arms stand up. Adrenaline coursed through her veins, urging her to take command. "I will call security," she said, more to convince herself than him. "Security?" He laughed. "What's a bunch of wannabe heroes going to do against my power?" His voice dripped with condescension, and a glimmer of something menacing flashed in the depths of his dark glasses. The whispers intensified around her. A few passengers exchanged nervous glances, unsure of how they should react. Some looked towards the emergency exits, their hands frozen in their laps. Others dug their phones out, fingers poised to record or perhaps to call for help. "Call security if you feel compelled, but you might regret it," he said, leaning back again, those dark glasses shielding his intent. "Let us not spoil this lovely flight with unnecessary drama." Lucy squared her jaw, mentally shaking off the storm of uncertainty swirling around her. This was not just any flight, it was a boiling cauldron of apprehension, and she was at the center. She felt alone against the specter of this man, yet at that moment, something deep within urged her to stand her ground. A sudden jolt shuddered through the plane as turbulence rocked the cabin. Gasps echoed, hands gripped armrests more tightly, and Lucy seized the moment. "Everyone, please stay calm," she insisted, her voice clearer, steely now. "I assure you, this situation will be resolved." "Let us remain. Do you really think you can resolve this?" The man interrupted, his smile fading. "Because once I start pulling the strings, it won't just be my seat that changes." The cabin's air thinned with fear, the palpable tension washing over Lucy like a cold wave. She could sense that the stakes were rising higher than anyone could have imagined. Something was brewing beneath the surface, a storm just waiting to break. In that very moment, the seatbelt sign flickered on, accompanying a voice from the cockpit. "Ladies and gentlemen, we are experiencing unexpected turbulence. Please return to your seats." Every heart raced in sync with the aircraft, but one heart beat louder than the rest. Lucy's. She took a decisive step closer to the billionaire, locking eyes with him, determined to unveil whatever darkness lay before her. "Whatever you think you're planning, it ends now," she declared, tone unyielding, but then, he chuckled darkly, leaning in just enough for her to hear. "You have no idea what game you're playing, Lucy." What had she stumbled into? And was this just the beginning? In that electrifying moment, she felt the fragile threads of control slipping away. What was the man really capable of? Lucy's fight had just begun, but the worst was yet to come. The airplane lurched violently, and the dim cabin lights flickered ominously, casting eerie shadows on the anxious faces of the passengers. Lucy's hands trembled slightly as she steadied herself. Thoughts raced through her mind like a swarm of angry bees. She needed their safety to be her priority. The billionaire was something else, a cyclone in a suit, and they were all caught in his storm. "Everyone, please," she shouted, her voice slightly wavering amidst the rising panic. "Return to your seats and fasten your seatbelts." The passengers, while initially skittish, began to comply, their fear driving them to act. She noticed the older woman in 12B gripping her armrest as if it were a lifeline. "Get control of your cabin, Miss Turner," the billionaire sneered, his amusement returning. "This turbulence is merely a warm-up compared to what's about to unfold." The way he said it chilled her to the bone. Lucy knew nothing could change the undercurrent of dread that flowed between them, an electric tension that was as palpable as the fear in the air. She had to remain strong. "You're scaring these people," she shot back, maintaining her gaze, refusing to break eye contact. The grin on his face expanded, showcasing a subtle madness. "Good. Fear is a beautiful motivator, Lucy. It strips away the niceties, exposing true nature beneath the masks we wear." He paused, relishing the impact of his words, then added, "And I cannot wait to see what your true nature reveals." With one vigorous lurch, the plane dropped again, plunging the cabin into a moment of heart-stopping silence. Lucy's stomach twisted, and a few gasps erupted, blending into a collective sound of fear. It was worse than she thought. This man was orchestrating the chaos, at least in spirit. Suddenly, a voice pierced through the tension, a bold shout from the back of the cabin. "What are you doing?" This isn't some game. It was a middle-aged man, eyes blazing with defiance. We're not going to let you threaten us. Sit down. The billionaire barked, his light-hearted demeanor darkening like a brewing thunderstorm. The atmosphere crackled with electricity as those words hung uncomfortably in the air. But the anger of the man ignited something in the rest, murmurs of support, encouragement for bravery against this merciless stranger. Lucy felt the shift, the collective awakening of passengers who recognized their power versus the madness. Look, Lucy interjected, raising her voice to cut through the tension, we're all in this together. If we stay united, we can figure out what's really happening. He laughed again, low and chilling. Sweet, naive Lucy. This isn't about unity, it's about domination. You're forgetting who holds the cards. Just then, the cabin lights flickered again and then went dark, plunging everything into darkness. Startled yelps echoed off the walls, and Lucy's heart dropped. Was this part of his game? A ploy to deepen their collective fear? Stay calm. Stay in your seats. Lucy proclaimed, fighting the growing desperation in her chest. I'll get the power back on. In the silence that followed, every racing heartbeat listened for the potential threat looming ahead. Electricity surged through her veins as she fumbled for her nearby phone. She wasn't sure if she could reach for help, his eyes held her, an iron grip of intimidation constraining her, and then, through the static of uncertainty, a whispering voice emerged from the cockpit. This is only the beginning. Lucy's resolve strengthened, the truth was lurking at the fringes, shrouded in shadows. Whatever he was planning, it was about to explode. What do you mean? She demanded, adrenaline surging through her. His smile returned, but it didn't reach his eyes. It was predatory, calculated. You're about to learn, Lucy. This is just the first act in a twisted play. What lay beyond those words? Lucy steeled herself for the nightmarish truth that awaited them all. With the plane hoisting through the chaos, her instinct kicked in. It was more than just a flight now, it felt like a descent into darkness that could lead them all to breaking points. What would happen next, when the turbulence and shadows morphed into something far darker? Was this flight to hell or a fight for redemption? Only time would tell. The darkness felt alive, an oppressive mass that consumed everything, every breath and heartbeat swallowed in the silence. Lucy's hands shook as she clutched her phone, searching for a sliver of illumination, a connection to the world beyond this nightmare. The blue glow flickered and then stabilized, revealing the faces around her twisted in fear and desperation. Help me. It was the older woman in 12B, her voice trembling as she reached out, eyes wide and glistening with unshed tears. What's happening? Why can't we see? It will be okay. Lucy shouted, her voice a lifeline even as panic clawed at her throat. I'll find out what's wrong. Just stay strong. She forced a smile, trying to instill some measure of calm, even as her own heart raced in wild disarray. Do you even know how to fly this thing? The man who had spoken out earlier questioned, his face pressed into a mask of defiance against the shock. Lucy could only shake her head. I'm not a pilot, but I'll get help. Just give me a moment. As she moved toward what she thought was the cockpit, her mind was flooded with thoughts. The billionaire's mockery echoed in her head. This man was clearly playing a game much larger than any of them had realized. She turned the corner, using her phone as a torch, revealing half-closed doors and the cramped rear of the plane. Lucy, come back. Someone called, but she pushed onward, driven by a mix of fear and determination. She reached the cockpit door, her heart pounding against her ribs as she knocked sharply. Hello. What's happening in there? There was no answer. She pushed the door open, revealing a room illuminated by blinking instruments and chaotic data. But the pilot's seat was empty, and her pulse quickened. Had he left? Panic surged, making her stomach churn. Stay where you are, Lucy, a sinister voice commanded from behind her, making the hair on the back of her neck stand on edge. She turned slowly to see the billionaire emerging from the shadows, a chilling grin dancing across his lips that twisted the darkness around him, making the cockpit seem even more like a lair than a control room. "Did you think I would let you take control, darling?" Everyone's terrified. "What do you want?" Her voice cracked, though she fought to fill it with courage. He took a step closer, and she could see the glint of madness in his eyes. "I told you. This is a game. A test to break everyone down to their bare essence." His voice dropped to a whisper, sending a shiver racing up her spine. "And I get to play my favorite role, the puppeteer." Suddenly, the plane jolted violently again, the impact sending Lucy toppling backward, grasping at the doorframe for balance. The sounds of fear erupted from the cabin as more people screamed, their voices a cacophony of horror. "You think I'm afraid of a little turbulence?" The billionaire laughed, unaffected by the anxious screams. His eyes twinkled with a sick thrill. "This is just the preview, Lucy." Lucy scrambled back, her heart pounding, searching for a plan. She had to get back to the passengers and create some sort of order amidst the chaos, but how could she when he was blocking her escape? "Why do you want this?" Lucy managed to ask, desperation coloring her voice. "What's the end game?" "Ah, the question everyone asks," he said, stepping closer, compelling her into his dark spell. "What if I told you that true power lies in chaos? That watching people shrivel in fear is the ultimate high?" Somewhere deep within, she felt the urge to fight back. He had underestimated her. To him, she was merely a pawn, but Lucy was no stranger to survival. With a sudden surge of action, she pushed him hard, catching him off guard just as the plane hit another bout of turbulence. He staggered back, and she slipped past him, back into the main cabin filled with panic-stricken faces. "Lucy!" The man from earlier shouted as she reappeared, alive with a new spark of courage. "Listen to me!" she cried, words bursting forth like a dam breaking. "The only way out of this is to band together. We can't let him manipulate us." As the panic mounted, she noticed a glimmer of resolve igniting within the passengers' eyes. Could they actually fight against this chaos? But the billionaire was already forming a new plan, his laughter echoing hauntingly as he leaned against the cockpit door. The game was far from over, and Lucy knew it. What will happen next? She whispered to herself, her pulse racing. In that moment between fear and determination, the stakes rose and she understood this was no longer just about surviving a flight. It was a fight for their lives. And just as she prepared to rally the troops, a new surge of static crackled through the cabin overhead. "Attention, passengers," the mysterious voice from the cockpit spoke again, sending chills down her spine. "Welcome to the real show." What awaited them in this darkened flight? Lucy braced herself as uncertainty seeped into every corner of the cabin, knowing the twist of fate loomed dangerously close. The voice dripped with a malice that sent icy fingers creeping down Lucy's spine. The quiet panic in the cabin abruptly shifted, voices merging into a jumbled symphony of fear. She swung her phone around, desperately trying to catch the expressions of her fellow passengers, hoping to find solidarity in their eyes. "Everyone, stay calm," Lucy shouted, her own voice barely a whisper against the mounting chaos. She stepped further into the cramped cabin, looking for anything that could serve as a weapon or a means of rallying the passengers. "Lucy!" The man she recognized from earlier reached for her. His expression was stricken, eyes darting wildly around the cabin. "What do we do? We can't just sit here." Before she could respond, the lights blinked violently, casting the cabin into a strobe-like effect. Shadows danced across the faces of passengers, morphing their fear into something almost primal. Lucy could see them taking the billionaire's words to heart. They were primed for panic, ready to crumble under the weight of chaos. "We fight this together," she decided, the words tumbling out. "I need everyone to listen. Focus on me." Their frightened faces turned her way. A flicker of determination sparked in their eyes, but just as quickly, it faded. Each jolt of the plane echoed doubts in their hearts. Lucy's heart raced at the responsibility. It was a burden she had never signed up for, but she had to wield it. Now was not the time to falter. Suddenly, the intercom crackled back to life, drowning out her pleas. "I hope you're enjoying the flight, my lovely passengers," the billionaire's voice slithered through the speakers. "Allow me to introduce a challenge, one that tests your very core." "What are you talking about?" a woman shouted from the back, her voice taut with fear. "You will find out shortly." His laughter echoed, hollow and haunting. "But for now, here's a little fire to get things heating up." A deafening bang reverberated through the cabin, like the sound of an explosion paired with the eerie whoosh of air escaping through punctured metal. From the cockpit came a bright flash, blinding for a moment, as the smell of smoke crept into the air. Instinctively, chaos erupted. "Everyone, back away!" Lucy screamed, instinctively shielding the older woman beside her. "We have to get out. Now!" People stumbled over each other, screams melding into a nightmarish cacophony. Lucy's mind raced, her heart pounding painfully in her chest. "We can't go toward the front." She pointed toward the gaping cockpit doorway, smoke billowing out like a dark, choking cloud. "Where do we go?" The man's eyes widened, pushing closer, desperation spilling into his voice. "Back. There must be an emergency exit near the rear," Lucy urged, unwilling to succumb to despair. She would not watch this plane fill with chaos and lose her chance to save them all. The group surged toward the back, but the billionaire's taunts grew louder, his presence felt even in their flight from danger. "You think you can outrun the inevitable? Fear is the greatest force, my dears." The mocking laughter chased them, and the walls of the plane seemed to pulse with it. Lucy felt the heat of the smoke curling around her throat, it ignited every instinct to survive. She heard children crying, adults sobbing, and it fueled her urgency. Just ahead, the emergency exit glinted in the dim light. "Almost there. Keep moving." But just as they reached the rear door, the plane lurched violently again, throwing them all forward. They crashed against one another, a pile of bodies tumbling into a heap. Lucy's breath escaped her, panic clawing at her throat. "Phone!" Someone pleaded from the crowd, next to Lucy's ear. Propping himself up, fumbling blindly, she managed to grab her phone, hitting the flashlight function. Blinding light bounced in all directions, reflecting fear and determination in their eyes. "Help! We need help back here." Suddenly, silence fell. Not eerie silence, but a tense pause, as though the plane itself held its breath. Then, a voice drew near, low, dark, sinister. "Games of survival have begun." Lucy's heart dropped as dread unfurled in her chest. What awaited them in this nightmare? As her resolve strengthened, new uncertainties crept in, suffocating her hope. The real game was just beginning, and if anyone was to win, Lucy realized, it would take more than courage. Did they have what it took to survive the billionaire's twisted game, or would they succumb to the darkness lurking around them? The silence shattered like glass, replaced by screams and desperate pleas. Lucy's flashlight cut through the haze, illuminating panic-stricken faces, but the oppressive fear was palpable. She gripped her phone tightly, her heart hammering in her chest. "We need to stick together," she yelled, her voice strained yet resolute. Pushing herself to her feet, she surveyed the crowd. Moments ago, they had been strangers, now they were bound by fate, struggling against the madness overwhelming their flight. She caught sight of the older woman she had shielded earlier, trembling with fear. "Can you walk?" Lucy asked softly, crouching down to meet her eyes. "Yes, I'm okay," the woman lied, her voice quivering. Lucy nodded, determined to protect them all. Before they could move, the intercom blared once more. What a delightful display of desperation. "But let us spice things up a bit, shall we?" His tone twisted into that sickly sweet poison only a tormentor can master. "What does that even mean?" a man shouted, his voice thick with rage. "Ah, the classic question." The billionaire replied, the birthday-like cheer dripping with sarcasm. You'll each find a surprise beneath your seats. Hope you're ready to barter for safety. Careers, relationships, lives, everything's on the table. Eyes widened as passengers scrambled to lift their seats. Lucy couldn't comprehend barter. For what? Surely he didn't mean lives. It felt horrific and surreal, like a nightmare unraveling before her. Do you think he's joking? Someone muttered aloud, their voice laced with disbelief. I don't think so, Lucy whispered, dread coiling around her gut. Why was he doing this? Who would treat lives like pawns in a game? A woman near the front screamed. Her screams cut through the rising chaos, chilling Lucy to the bone as a seat cushion was pulled out, revealing a small black box. What is this? She cried, turning it over in her hands. The billionaire's laughter danced through the cabin. Open it. You'll discover the true worth of your soul. What does that mean? Lucy shouted. The atmosphere shifted from terror to frantic greed, as others tried to rip the boxes free. Hey! Stop! Lucy fired back, but they tore through the cabin like a storm. She focused her flashlight, trying to cut through disarray. People clamored over one another, voices rising in panic and desperation. The hope she clung to was slipping, replaced with the dread of a sinking ship. Get them away from the exits. She shouted, but her words landed like lead. Suddenly, a loud crash jolted everyone back. The plane shuddered violently, and the lights flickered off. Lucy felt herself fall, the world around her tilting into darkness. A collective gasp echoed, followed by frantically scrabbling hands finding any solid surface. Get moving. Find a way out. Lucy urged, her voice stronger now amid the chaos. She could feel the fear in the cramped cabin igniting like dry paper, waiting for a match. A wild thought struck her. What if one of those boxes held a secret? Something they could use to negotiate with their captor. Lucy. The man from earlier grabbed her arm, urgency seeping into his grip. What are you thinking? I'm thinking we need to find out what's in those boxes. She exclaimed, heart racing as the lights flickered back on, revealing panic-stricken faces twisted in fear. It might be our only way to gain control. Just then, she saw a group at the front, crowded around a suitcase split open. A man was pulling documents out, something that looked like a release form. No. Don't, Lucy shouted, but it was too late. A scream shot through the cabin. There was a resounding snap, and the plane shuddered again, sirens blaring. Cries of sheer terror erupted around her, drowning her voice. As the air thickened with smoke and despair, Lucy realized the gravity of their situation. The billionaire's game wasn't about their survival, it was about breaking them. And she needed to be the one to lead the charge against the twisted puppet master in the cockpit. Everyone! Listen to me! She shouted, her throat raw. We're not giving up. Gather the boxes and meet back here now. What awaited her in that cabin filled with fear and desperation? Would they unite against the dark threat lurking in the shadows, or would the billionaire make them turn on each other? As they closed in, the weight of their choices gathered overhead like a storm cloud, bursting with the uncertainty of life and death. Lucy's heart raced. The true game was just beginning, and time was running out. Lucy's voice echoed above the chaos, a desperate lifeline in a sea of anxiety. The cabin trembled as people clamored toward her, eyes darting wildly in search of any shred of hope amidst their panic. Each face reflected the same grim fear not only of flying but of what lay in those sinister little boxes. Just as the last beam of light flickered overhead, another loud bang rang through the aircraft, sending a jolt through Lucy's core. An overhead compartment burst open, spilling luggage and debris onto the floor. The cabin filled with dust and a rising sense of dread, clinging to their lungs like a thick fog. Stay together! Lucy shouted, but her command was swallowed by the urgent whispers and frantic motions. A woman stumbled, tripping over someone's suitcase and landing hard on the ground, her screams swallowed by the rising tide of noise. Someone help her! Lucy cried, but it was like she was shouting into a void. Fear had gripped the passengers, immobilizing them as they fought against their instincts. She glanced back at the older woman. "Can you get to her?" Lucy pressed, knowing more voices would only breed more panic. The woman nodded hesitantly, inching towards the fallen passenger, but Lucy's instincts to move spurred her. "I'll help," she insisted, rushing over to steady the other woman. As they leaned down to assist, Lucy's heart raced. It was impossible to ignore the dim flickers of lights around them, shadows dancing against the walls. The billionaire's sinister voice returned on the intercom, grating like nails on a chalkboard. "Ah, ah, ah. Did I mention? Only the brave or the cunning will survive my game. So, all of you, go on. Open your boxes and let us see who's willing to sacrifice what for their lives." "No!" Lucy screamed, frustrated by how easily fear could unravel people. Then she saw him, one man, isolated, clutching his black box tightly like it held the secrets of the universe. Lucy felt a surge of adrenaline. "You!" She pointed at him. "Open it. We need to know what's inside." His eyes widened, glancing between the box and Lucy. "What if it's something terrible? It doesn't matter. It can't be worse than this," Lucy exclaimed, motioning to the chaos. The man hesitated, trembling, and then finally nodded, slowly lifting the lid. As the box opened, the cabin held its breath. The item revealed was a small device, a remote, blinking ominously in his hand. Gasps erupted as he raised it higher, dread creeping back into the air. "What does it do?" Someone shrieked. "No one touch it!" Lucy barked, her protectiveness flaring. "We don't know what might happen." But fear had already begun to seep in as several passengers stepped back, eyeing the man warily. "I suggest you use it," the billionaire's voice taunted again, dripping with delight, "if you'd rather not find out the limits of this twisted cabin." "What does he mean?" someone shouted, panic igniting again. The tension became palpable as whispers turned into shouts, frantic discussions spiraling out of control. The airplane felt like it was shrinking, the walls closing in on them. "Everyone! Focus!" Lucy's voice rose again. "We can't let him pit us against each other. We have to work together." In that moment, a young man pierced through the chaos. "No. Not if he controls us. Each of us is a pawn," he yelled defiantly, pointing a finger toward Lucy. As eyes diverted between them, Lucy realized panic could spiral into betrayal. If this was a game, who would be brave enough to trust again? Shadows of doubt surrounded her as whispers turned dangerous. Moments passed like hours, and the air thrummed with tension. The surface of unity threatened to crack under the weight of desperation. As Lucy scanned the faces around her, she knew they had to decide: would they betray each other for their own survival, or stand together against their tormentor? Suddenly, the lights flickered, and the plane shook violently. A deafening roar filled the cabin, as a voice boomed, "The game begins now, choose your side." Lucy's heart raced. What choice would they make under such pressure? As darkness loomed again, their fate hung by a thread, and Lucy felt the nightmare descend even deeper. What sacrifices would they have to make to survive? Would they risk everything, including their humanity, for one more moment of hope? The plane lurched again, a violent shudder that rocked Lucy's stomach. Panic erupted like fireworks, screams blending into a symphony of fear. She could see it now: the cramped aisles were more than just space between seats, they were battlegrounds forming as passengers eyed each other with suspicion, the earlier camaraderie slipping fast into betrayal. "Listen to me," she shouted, trying to cut through the chaos. "We need to stick together. We can't let fear take control." But her words were lost in a wave of panic. The man with the remote was frozen, his face a mask of horror and uncertainty. "What if it does something awful?" he stammered, his grip tightening on the device. It was now becoming the focal point of their impending doom, pulsing in the dim cabin light like a heartbeat, the older woman Lucy had spoken to earlier was now among the worried faces crowding around the man. What if it explodes? She whispered, her voice barely audible over the clamoring madness. Or activate some doomsday scenario. A young girl chimed in from the back, her eyes wide with terror. Lucy clenched her fists, desperate to bring any sense of control back to the cabin. We can't let that happen. But her pleas only fueled the growing hysteria. Each passenger began to retreat, eyes flaring with panic, abandoning the idea of collaboration. Enough! Lucy yelled, her voice echoing through the tumultuous air. You're all acting like this is the end. Fear is the true enemy here. A man near the front shouted back, and how can we trust you? You're just as scared as we are. His accusation hung over her like a dark cloud. Suddenly, the lights flickered once more, and darkness enveloped the cabin in a suffocating grip. The rhythmic hum of the engines faded, replaced with a menacing stillness that sent chills racing down Lucy's spine. Then the billionaire's voice crackled to life again, echoing louder and clearer. Did I hear someone refuse my invitation to the game? How rude. I grow weary of waiting. The voice seemed to weave through the darkness, and with it, the presence of terror loomed. It was alive, crawling beneath their skin. Open the boxes. He commanded, a sinister note lacing his tone. Choose your fate, or I shall choose for you. A sense of impending doom washed over Lucy. If they didn't act fast, what would become of them? She could feel her heart pounding, the weight of responsibility pressing down on her. Open them. Make a choice. The urgency spilled out of her as she turned to look at the prey around her, desperation sparking in every glance. If we don't risk something, we'll lose everything. It's the only way. But the tension was palpable, thick enough to choke. Faces of uncertainty turned toward the man with the remote. There was no backing out now. Fear wrapped its fingers tightly around them, squeezing the hope from their hearts. The man with the remote opened his mouth, but no sound came. Instead, eyes swiveled back and forth, as others began to reach for their own boxes. One passenger slowly lifted the lid of their box, and dread filled the cabin, an electric anticipation that silenced every heartbeat. What if it's worse than all of us? A woman whispered, gripping her neighbor's arm. The man held the remote tighter, trembling. What choice would they make? Would they embrace the darkness or stand firm in its face? The stakes were rising, and as Lucy gazed into the frightened eyes surrounding her, she understood, in this twisted game, the real prize was not survival, but maintaining what little humanity remained. As a bright light emanated from a nearby box, a chilling realization swept through the cabin. They were standing on the precipice of choices that could change everything, and in that moment of excruciating tension, Lucy grasped what lay ahead. Would they save one another or condemn themselves? Yet one question remained, echoing through the minds of every passenger. How far would they go to survive? As the light pulsed ominously, shadows creeping across the cabin, Lucy knew their fate was about to be decided. What horrors awaited them in that blinding glow? As the blinding light from the box intensified, fear clutched at Lucy's chest, making it hard to breathe. The air crackled with tension, murmurs rippled like waves through the aisles, desperate whispers becoming a chaotic chorus. What's inside? What's in there? Someone shouted, but no one had the courage to take a genuine step forward. Each second felt like an eternity, the weight of uncertainty hanging heavy overhead. The man holding the remote hesitated, visibly struggling. Sweat trickled down his brow as he glanced from one terrified face to another. Maybe we open them together. His voice trembled, unsure. There was a flicker of hope, but it was quickly snuffed out by a sneering laugh from a man nearby. Together? We couldn't even agree on who would get the last piece of bread. A ripple of anger surged through Lucy. This isn't about bread. This is life and death. She shouted, her voice rising above the crowd again, igniting a fire in their fear. If we don't unite, this is how we all go down. Moments ticked away, and then a young woman, her hands shaking violently, said, "I'll do it." She stepped closer to the glowing box, lifting the lid with shaky fingers. Gasps filled the cabin as the contents crystallized before her eyes. Inside lay a gleaming knife, sharp enough to cut through skin, and beneath that, a scroll. The woman dropped the lid and staggered back, horror plastered across her face. What kind of sick joke is this? Panic surged again, and Lucy felt her heart race. It's not a joke. We can't let it scare us. This might be our way out, she pleaded, but deep down, the lingering dread twisted her stomach tighter. Then came the billionaire's voice again, cheerful and mocking. "Ah, yes. The first gift. A sharp lesson wrapped in steel. Will it tear you apart or bring you together? Only time will tell. Open more boxes, and see what delightful surprises await." The words carved through her resolve. Lucy's throat tightened, each pulse of the chilling light casting sinister shadows across the cabin. The urgency for decisions clawed at her, thick and suffocating. Without another word, a woman near the front, eyes darting nervously, lifted her box and revealed a vial filled with a dark liquid. "Poison," she croaked, her fear evident. "No. I can't. I want tea." A man beside her snatched it, spilling a few drops as the crowd gasped. The fear became palpable, almost tangible. This can't be happening. He lifted it to the light, inspecting it as though it could somehow promise safety. "Stop!" Lucy shouted, fear morphing into fury. "Don't choose the easy way out. We need to fight for each other, not against." But disbelief had spread like wildfire. The growing darkness of distrust and panic overwhelmed the cabin, and then something cracked. A shout of anger erupted from a corner. The young girl, overwhelmed by fear, hurled her own box to the ground. It shattered, sending contents spilling out. A stuffed teddy bear. Laughter bubbled up, so out of place in the pandemonium, much like the girl's innocent gesture. "What's that supposed to do?" someone sneered. "Hope," she whispered defiantly, "that we can fight this together." As the passengers fell silent, the laughter fizzled. Lucy seized the moment, her gaze darting around. "We still have a choice. We can be more than this madness." A blinding flash interrupted her. A curtain of white light overruled their surroundings, enveloping the cabin. The voice returned in a mocking cheer. "Your next chance awaits. Choose wisely." She squeezed her eyes shut, heart pounding like a war drum. The darkness seemed to intensify around them. Had they already lost themselves to the endless cycle of fear? What lay ahead was unclear, but one thing was certain: the consequences could be deadly. Would they choose unity and face whatever horror awaited, or let the shadows of doubt consume them? The stakes had been raised, and Lucy's mind raced with possibilities. What dangers lurked behind the next box? As the numbing silence fell in the cabin, a single thought pierced through the fog: what if their choices condemned them? All. The game was just beginning, but would they realize it in time? The chaos felt like the very air was charged with madness as Lucy stood beneath the weight of desperate eyes. Panic stirred, but alongside fear, flickers of determination erupted in the passengers. "We need to unite," she cried amid the turmoil, trying to pierce through the cacophony of voices questioning one another's motives. A light flickered back in the darkness, a glimmer of hope. "Look!" someone shouted, holding up a box with both hands like an offering. Inside lay another device, this one a communicator. "We can contact the ground." A mix of disbelief and hope swept through the cabin. The remote had been weighing heavy on everyone's minds, but this could change everything. "Lucy!" The man from earlier, eyes wide with caution. "What if it's a trick?" The billionaire's laughter rumbled through the intercom. "Oh, dear passengers, how nostalgic. Bonded by trust yet ready to sink each other. Which will it be? Get the communicator." Lucy persisted, a fire igniting in her core. "If we can reach someone outside." Hope flickered back to life. The man holding it nodded slowly, glancing around with renewed determination as Lucy caught the spirit of resilience dawning in faces around her. but just as the man moved to press for help, the plane shook violently again, darkness descending over them like a heavy shroud. The voice bore down on them, chilling her to the bone. Regrettably, that option is no longer on the table. Time to face real consequences. In that second, a loud bang reverberated through the cabin, the sound so close it made Lucy cringe with fear. "Hold on!" she screamed, heart racing as a flash of panic raced through the entries. Glimmers of the outside world appeared in the chaos as passengers began to clamor toward the exits. "Stay calm," Lucy urged, stepping forward to create some sort of order. The man with the communicator, now wavering, poised to call out for help. "This is not how we do this," Lucy fired back. "We can beat him, we just have to stay together." Passion surged through her as she called on everyone to heed her voice, but the turbulence thrashed harder. Another passenger screamed, collapsing as panic seeped through the crowd. Lucy's heart twisted, she had to act. "Get her to the back. We need to help her," she barked, even as her voice wavered against the mounting terror. A surge of adrenaline propelled the group as they worked together, securing those that fell behind while trying to navigate through the confusion. The laughter of the billionaire echoed louder now, a curt reminder of their precarious position, a threat hanging heavy in the air. "Don't listen to him," Lucy roared, feeling the knot in her stomach tighten. "We are not pawns in his twisted game." At that moment, she saw it, the flickering light of the communicator, almost lost in the chaos. "Get that phone working," she shouted, pushing forward to grab it from the man's shaking hands. "This is our chance." Everyone watched breathlessly as the tension clung thick around them. The isolated dread that had permeated the cabin started to fade, replaced with a shared understanding their fate would not be decided alone. With trembling hands, she pressed the buttons. "This is Flight 874, we're experiencing a technical emergency and a potential hijacking. We need assistance immediately." The intercom crackled with more laughter beneath her, but Luna's resolve burned bright. "You think you can harvest our fear? We are stronger together," she shouted defiantly, taking a stand against the storm brewing within the cabin. The faces of the passengers, strengthened by Lucy's conviction, rallied behind her, watching her with burning eyes. They nodded, finding courage that had almost been drowned out by the billionaire's taunts. The hum of engines began to fade, replaced by a resolve that echoed. Hands intertwined, Lucy felt the warmth of shared faith engulf her. "Together," she cried, "we break this cycle. Together." With that, the cabin erupted. Together. The collective voices rose, harmonizing into an electric wave of commitment that shattered their previous fears. Wasn't he that what the billionaire had tried to break? The very spirit that blossomed in unity. Suddenly, the plane jerked one last time. It felt like the world held its breath, but Lucy's determination would not waver. "This isn't a game any longer," she gritted through her teeth, locking eyes with the shadows holding them captive. "We take back our power." As they braced against the final surge, the blaring alarm of an emergency flashed through, triggering the shadowy billionaire's voice faltering, hesitate as the structure of manipulation began to crack. "Welcome back," came a darker tone, but this time, it was laced with desperation. With one last click, the door to unity swung wide open. "We will be heard," Lucy proclaimed, ready to champion their cause against the encroaching darkness. As chaos swelled outside, Lucy steeled herself against fear, knowing they would either sink together or soar. The cabin felt electric with defiance. Their spirits soared high, as the skies assembled above them, catching the fragments that risked being lost. In that moment a fierce new dawn had just begun. Now that you've read this thrilling conclusion, it's time to support what you love. Subscribe immediately to ensure you don't miss our next exclusive stories. Smash the like button now. Let us feed the algorithm. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories. Share your thoughts about this epic end, and don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. True fans know the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.